My name is Sarah, and thank you all for sharing. That was really insightful. I would like to ask Senator-elect Pedersen, I'm wondering, when you're talking about legislative level when it comes to paid family leave, I know there's some private companies that do paid family leave, and they're few and far between, I feel like. How much of it takes place, or does this reform, I guess, need to take place on the legislative level, and how much takes place like with individual business owners providing that for their employees? Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm sure Sue could give you the exact amount. But unfortunately, it is few and far between. And so while some businesses are offering this, and we've looked at creating tax incentives to try to bring businesses along, it's just, quite frankly, it's not going to capture everybody. When we talk about the gig economy, when we talk about people who are living in poverty currently, whose kids are showing up significantly behind others who have access that they don't. You know, I was lucky, I had access to preschool, but probably not high quality early childcare. So we have a lot to do to actually close that gap and ensure that we don't have kids falling through the cracks. So I don't know if Sue wants to add to how many businesses in Colorado actually offer that. But it's a privilege.
Another question? Yes, ma'am. Right here. We'll get a microphone for you. Why don't you come around here? Or she's right here. Oh, it's okay. Come here. There you go. Thanks. Great.
I'm just wondering if there aren't some innovative ways we could tie in childcare with senior living homes with the old folks, because they're at a loss. They don't know what to do with themselves. And it seems to me we could just bring the two together and it would be cheaper.
There you go. I like it. That's some good innovative thinking. Any comment on that?
Yeah, so I love that idea very much. And it's something that's been done in a couple of places. The block against it is people worrying about illness. Because children get sick so often, and the concern is that it will cause, massive epidemics among the elderly population, and then it could hurt them. I'm not convinced, but if there's anyone here who is working in the medical field, I think this is so enormously promising. It's you have senior citizens who have time. They're often lonely. They need to feel needed, and children, very young children, desperately need exactly what they have: time and attention. So I looked into it and found that it's gotten tied up in this health issue. So we need to figure out how to stop the common cold somehow.
Got a question right here. He's coming with the microphone.
Hi, I just saw in 1940 only 1 in 10 both parents working. But in 1940, most parents were married. There was a husband and a wife. And I think we have to quit educating people and saying, well, just take the pill or wear a condom or whatever and let somebody use you, because that's what they're doing. And if they get pregnant, the guy is usually gone. So I think we have to go back, because two-parent families don't have the problem that single-parent families have, and 40% of the babies now are born, 40% are born out of wedlock. Correct. And I think that has to change. I think we got to quit promoting, you can have sex and you'll be just fine, but just be sure you take the pill. We found out already in 2005 that young women who take the pill before they have a baby, the World Health Organization came out and said, you know what, you're at high risk for breast cancer, liver cancer, and cervical cancer, okay? So why are we doing this in the first place? Why are we allowing people going into our schools when the Christian parents are telling their children, no, you don't do that, but then the schools come in and undermine the parents who are sending their kids to that school. And now we have this problem. And I just think we're making problems. And I think that has to change. You get married before you have children. At least I thought that was what I was supposed to do, and that's what I did. And you didn't sleep around.
Yeah.
And so
You guys want to respond to that?
The hookup culture does not work.
There you go.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree with you more. As you, I'm sure know, because you have obviously studied this issue, but in case the rest of you guys don't know, for babies born to African American women under age 25, 90% are born to unmarried parents. For babies born to white mothers under age 25, 70% are born to unmarried parents. From an early childhood point of view, just on my topic, what we know young children need to thrive are resources. First and foremost, nurture and attention resources, and they need money. So when you have 2 adults in a family instead of 1, you've just doubled the resources available to that child in one fell swoop, no government program required. The way I am thinking about this issue is as follows. We used to have very high rates of smoking in this country. We discovered that smoking is a cause of lung cancer. So we did 2 things at the same time. We treated people with lung cancer. There was a whole enterprise that did that, right? When people have lung cancer, the researchers tried to find better and better cures, and we treated those people. At the same simultaneous moment, a whole other group of people were mounting a public education campaign to reduce smoking, which occurred. Smoking rates in this country have dropped drastically. In my thinking, and I would love to discuss this with you afterwards, because this is something I've been thinking about a great deal, we have to do them both at the same time. Any baby that's born, here's the baby. And we've got to do everything first of all, we're stuck with the baby, because that baby is going to be in our K-12 schools in our society. If that baby goes to prison or drops out and goes on by government programs, we are all stuck with that baby, right? In addition, just from a human dignity point of view, we all want to create a society where every baby has a chance to flourish. However, that's the kind of the short-term treat the lung cancer issue. We've got to figure out strategies and we've got to bring the left and the right, because the left won't talk about this right now, and I haven't quite figured out why. I think in the early childhood field, that's possibly one avenue, because people are always already talking about the resources that young children need. But we've got to put our heads together to figure out ways of changing the culture around this. Just as one quick example, I had a conversation last week with a conservative economist at American Enterprise Institute, and I was asking him about this issue. He has not really thought about this issue, because he does economics of healthcare, and he is not thinking about this. And I said, well, what if we gave people marriage grants, like startup grants, like we pay them to get married, and every year they stay married, they get extra money. Now, I know some of my other colleagues at AAI would hate that idea a lot. This guy thought it was a great idea. And what he said is, people respond, behaviors change through positive incentives, not negative incentives. I don't know, but I think there's such a vibrant conversation to be had about how to that's the long-term solution to most of what we're talking about.
Yeah, Nadine.
So apparently, if you follow these 3 rules, have a baby, wait to have a baby till you're married, graduate from high school, and be employed, you're under 10% chance of being under the poverty line. So, those 3 things, first of all. And the other point I want to make is, I don't know if you've read the book by Robert Putnam called Our Kids. It's, a liberal professor from Harvard, talking about how, the divorce rate, the having children out of marriage, those things, it's really interesting. It's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It's not a Christian or non-Christian thing. It's really an income thing. People in the higher income level, their kids don't do those activities. You know, you look at candidates running for president. You look at the Democrats. You know, they're still married. Their kids didn't have children before they got married, and it wasn't because they shame people for that. It's because their children, the outcome will be worse if they do those things, and they don't want their children to have those kind of outcomes. So I think part of it is you know, the left and the right needs to talk more openly about this. It's a better choice, not because we're saying they're better people because they made better choices. And we're not trying to shame people for having a child out of wedlock. It's not like that. It's just your outcomes so much harder for you to do it in that order. Statistics show that it's just going to be a harder road for you. And so we really should, on both the left and the right, be encouraging people to make different kind of choices that give them a better shot and their children a better shot.
Right. Young man right here. Oh, Brittany, do you want to?
Oh,
Go ahead, please. No, go for it.
All responded. I don't know if we all want to respond to every comment, but I think that most women would not choose to be single moms, and so that's why making sure that they're able to choose when and if they want to have a child is a really critical piece. And so we, different perspectives here on that piece, but I think access to birth control and making sure that you do have those choices is going to be the key thing in making sure you make those decisions and that you can have a child when you know that it's right for you.
This young gentleman right here.
Hi. Instead of having a public school system that goes through K through 12, why can't we have a school voucher system that allows the parents to choose which kind of private school they could go to and give possibly a better education to the child?
It's a great question.
I wrote an op. Wait, which is this? Is this one?
They're worth looking at.
Okay. Is this one? Yeah. I wrote an op-ed. If you give me your email afterwards, I can send you an op-ed I wrote. The title was something like "School Choice Begins at Birth." So, this idea, there is a school choice movement that is working towards just that, a voucherized system. Jeb Bush has been in the forefront of this. And part of my point in my op-ed is, why should the government control nothing about your child's education except for that it can't start till it's 5, right? So this is not what you'd consider a realistic proposal at the moment, but I agree with you in principle. If you said children's education is going to work best if it's under control of parents are not going to put their kid in nightmare childcare for 5 years, waiting until they get their kindergarten voucher. If they can use that money, they will use that money when they know their child's development is most critical. A kind of another version of that idea that I have thought about is not only are our schools run by government, funded by government, run by government, attendance in the public schools is also mandated by the government. So if you eliminated mandatory high school attendance and enabled people to go to work in our apprenticeship programs, there would be you could have programs where scholarships were available. That would also free up a lot of public dollars that could be made available to families much earlier in their children's lives. So I think there's a whole range of those kinds of ideas that challenge our current system. And the ideas are easy. It's easier to think about the ideas than to make them happen.
And we grappled with this a lot on the education committee, and I believe strongly that we need to keep our public schools as strong as they can, and they're already struggling significantly. But we do need to look at ways that we, like you were saying, help incentivize, look at how we can streamline high school and create other opportunities so that they're actually, right now we have the concurrent enrollment program so that they're graduating with 2 years of college already paid for, or apprenticeship programs and alternative pathways, because all of you just came out of high school not too long ago, and I'm sure you look back at your last 2 years and maybe don't remember much about what you learned, just kind of looking forward to college like many people. So I think that there's ways that we can utilize that time and be creative and draw those dollars down to early childhood.
We've got a wrap here, so I want to make some final remarks, and then if you'd like to make some closing remarks too. So I want to make sure everyone understands who's sitting up here. So with Senator-elect Pedersen, you have a member of the Democrat Party. With Nadine, you have somebody who worked for Rick Santorum and is appointed by President Trump. And then we have one of the greatest conservative think tanks with Catherine Stevens, AEI. And what I've heard them say tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that there is common ground, at least in the sense that we believe that those early years are absolutely critical to keep those kids invested with their parents as much as we possibly can. And the question then is, what does that look like? And what I often like to say, when we're thinking about public policy development, what that looks like, we want to start with the principles and work our way to the prescriptions. I think the principles are generally the same, and the prescriptions may have different ideas. How best do you keep a mom at home? I'm deeply concerned about what this may do for small business owners, for the business community. I think a lot of conservatives are concerned about those types of mandates that are put upon them. But at the same time, we care deeply about family. At Centennial Institute, we say right down there, faith, family, and freedom. Family is absolutely critical to future. So how do we work out these prescriptions? But I think there's a lot of the common principles there, even among our friends on the right and left side that go, we need to keep those kids with their parents as much as we possibly can, to invest in them, to achieve everything that Catherine was talking about, but we've got to now work out the prescription differences. And Marco Rubio's put forth ideas. It sounds like Brittany's put forth similar ideas here in Colorado, the Democrats have. So we've got to kind of try to figure out those perspectives. Do you guys want to make some final remarks, and then I'll turn it over to you to close it out? Great.
I just really appreciate the open conversation. I never have the opportunity to sit on a panel with, people from your backgrounds, and I think that we should do that more often. I appreciate you inviting me. I am always open to come and visit your school and meet with you individually. If you ever want to come down to the Capitol, I'd love to have you down there. We all create better policy when we try to listen and work together, and that's really what my focus is at the Capitol. So thanks for having me.
It's great having you be here. I totally agree that we need to work in a bipartisan way. And, so many of the most conservative, I know even Senator Santorum and John Hines that I worked for both in the Senate, and, they worked together a lot in those years. I mean, Rick Santorum never did anything without a Democratic counterpart. But the culture right now is almost, if you do something with a Democratic partner, you get, both sides have to deal with a lot of unhappy people because it looks like they've sold out or something. And I think we need to look at people that are in a different political party than us. Is sometimes they have a different worldview than us. That doesn't mean they don't have the same heart we have. That doesn't mean they don't have the same commitment that we have. And the only way we're really going to get through these kind of issues is if we're sitting at the table together, because that's the only way that we're going to build the kind of will we need and the grassroots in order to deal with some of these big, we're talking about them like, oh, well, this, how about this and this, but these are really big ideas and big problems that are going to take you guys. Unfortunately, you're going to still be dealing with it when you're delving more into policy. So it's been great being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I just want to echo the way that I think we need to be approaching any area of policy, and this one in particular, is with first principles. As I said before, the science is extremely clear, and we all need to hold ourselves accountable to that science. So if we do that, there we have an immense amount of common ground just to start with. The policy area of early childhood is it's like the Western frontier. It's like Arizona in 1877. They just laid the Royal Road, and there's no one there. So I think it needs a lot of good thinking. And as Nadine just said, when you guys are out in the world, it's still going to be in its early phases. So we need as many smart people thinking about this as possible. Along those lines, I just want to mention, you all probably know, American Enterprise Institute has a summer internship program. I would be delighted to talk to any of you about working with me on early childhood issues or help connect you to other scholars working in other policy areas. It's a really vibrant, fascinating place to work. So please talk to me if you're interested in that.
Thank you all. I think this has been an incredible evening. And Jeff, thank you and the university for having us. I think I only have one ask, and so now the responsibility is on your shoulders. The best way to start to solve these issues is for each and every one of you to be thoughtful and supportive of the challenges that face us and face you all. And don't hesitate to reach out to thought leaders like we've been exposed to tonight and make your feelings and your concepts known, because they want to hear from you. Thank you.